Today's conversation explains how starting with a house-hacked triplex can turn into an entire shift in your life.
I was still messaging guests at like 9 p.m., 10 p.m. It's like, Niyi, when are you putting the phone down? Like, we got into this so you could have more free time.
Both through the investing, the wealth you create, and maybe even a career change to being a real estate agent. If you are looking for somebody who plans and executes that plan, taking information and adjusting as needed along the way, then today's conversation is going to be very helpful for you. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Freedom Blueprint. I'm Adrienne Green, and today we're here with Niyi Adewole. Here we focus on how real estate entrepreneurs break free of the grind and create the freedom they wanted at the start, and Niyi is a great example of that. So thanks for being here with me.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. I'm pumped to be on.
Now, to start off, give us the quick version of your portfolio and business and what they look like today.
So, as you mentioned, my name is Niyi Adewole. I've been investing in real estate for over a decade, and so built that portfolio well before I got a license. I got licensed in 2021 and have now built out a team. But what it looks like today is I have a self-storage unit that's 225 units that we built from the ground up a few years ago. I used to have 30 long-term rentals, but I traded those in to build that self-storage and buy some other properties. I own 8 short-term rentals, 5 long-term rentals, and I lend on flips and then help other investors get started in real estate as well.
I love a lot of your story, and we'll dive into the pieces, but some of the great things I'm hearing is that you've adapted and pivoted. You didn't just stick with what you started with. As you learned and grew and different opportunities came, and you weren't afraid to sell what you started off with to transition into this higher level of real estate investing that you're doing now.
Absolutely. And it was not all me, right? This is definitely with partners and help from the outside, because I wasn't the one that came up with that self-storage idea. It's just I consistently took action every single year building that portfolio. And when an opportunity arose, I looked at it, ran the numbers, said, hey, this makes sense, and I took action.
Love that. So let's go back a little bit more to the beginning, where you went from a 3-unit house hack straight into a 12-unit as your second deal. That's a pretty big jump, right? So what made you comfortable scaling that fast? Like, what wisdom can we have for listeners who may be in that same place? And what would you tell somebody who's maybe a little fearful with a jump like that?
Man, I would say the main thing is taking that first step. So having the courage to go out there at 12 unit, it's not something I would have done for my first deal. Not at all, right? I had to do the first deal and then sit on the sidelines for about 18 months, saving money and looking around for another deal before this opportunity came up. And the reason I felt comfortable taking that one down is because I got that first house hack. Prior to even getting that first triplex house hack where I lived in one unit and rented the other 2 out, I've been listening to and reading books, and listening to different podcasts to try to just gather information, right? And understand like, hey, what am I doing in this space? And so when I took action on that first one, it gave me the power to take action on the second one. And the second one was literally 3 blocks down, well, not even 3 blocks, 3 houses down from the first one. Like that 12-unit opportunity was on the adjoining street. And so I felt very comfortable having walked that neighborhood many, many times and comfortable in the numbers that I could pull in because they had similar unit sizes to that triplex to go after it.
Right. I love that. I love how some people might have been, too scared to make that jump to that 12 unit, but you realized, hey, this is in my neighborhood. This is an area I know. I know these numbers really well, so I'm not going to get scared away arbitrarily just because it's a lot more doors.
Yes, absolutely. And the main thing with it is that the zeros just get bigger, right? So there's nothing that really changes with the numbers outside of like the lending piece. When you go after 12 units versus 4 or less, you're looking at more of a commercial loan, which is slightly different. But from checks and balances, renting out units, getting the most that you can from different tenants, renovating units, all that is about the same. Now you're just bringing it to a higher scale, and it just depends on what level that you're at, in your life to be able to take that one on.
Right, exactly. I love that. Now, Niyi, a lot of your story is about evolution. So we're going to go into that in a few different areas with a few different questions. So let's talk about asset class. You've done small multifamily, your ground up self-storage, a lot in the short-term rental and mid-term rental space. How do you decide which asset class deserves your attention, or how did that evolution happen there?
Man, so my bread and butter is residential, small multifamily for long-term rentals. That's what I did the first 5 years of my investing career. And I went from that triplex and was able to build it up to 30 units. And that was all I was going to do. I'm like, hey, this works. No need to do anything else. But I started meeting other investors along the way, and they encouraged me. And this is before, the pandemic boom. to try out short-term rentals. And so when I got promoted through my W-2 that I was working at the time, which is medical device sales, and got to a certain level and moved to the Southeast, I bought a house hack and I turned that house hack unit into a short-term rental just to try it out. And at that time, if I could make $1,500 a month, I was going to be golden. And so I said, okay, let me try this thing out. I know I can get that long term. Let me see what we can do short term. Just put some furniture down there. And I was able to pull in about 2,500 a month. And so that's when my
Wow.
eyes were open to the short term rental market. And then I went all in on that. And then circling back to how I got into the commercial space and building that self storage from the ground up, that was all by working with an investor friendly realtor to build up that unit of 30 units, right? I was buying those in Louisville, Kentucky, all within a mile of each other of where I used to live. And I started working with an investor friendly realtor that owned even more real estate than I did. She was the one, after working together for 6 or 7 years, that said, hey, of all my clients, you're the one that has the most similar mindset and the growth mindset, and I'd love to work with you. And I was comfortable working with her because a partnership is almost like a marriage, right? Like you really got to know
Yes.
that other person. And so she
Uh-huh.
brought this opportunity to buy this land, build self-storage, and do a townhome project on that piece. And it took about 6 months of negotiating with the owner at that time, but we were able to close on it and kick that project off. And what I did was sell these units to put my portion of the money into that storage, as well as to buy some more properties in Atlanta where I reside.
Okay. I like there's a lot of I think great wisdom and takeaways from that one story that I'd love to dig into. I was a investor friendly agent actively working for a number of years. I know you are that now. And sometimes investors, I feel like they don't necessarily value a relationship with an agent, right? They're going to go with whoever brings them the deal. They're kind of, agent agnostic, let's say. And I can see why they're doing that. And yet they're missing out on opportunities like what you got in Louisville.
Yes, and I think you're spot on. And I used to be that guy. And I still remember that because I'm still an investor, right? One of the things I used to hate doing was signing a buyer brokerage agreement before we've actually done anything, right? And so one of the practices that we do is you have to sign one before you can show a property now. But the way that we kind of work through that piece, especially because we focus on working with investors, is we identify rock star properties and we'll put offers out there before we even go and see it, just to see like, hey, can we get this under contract? Right. And in that, we have a buyer brokerage agreement, and then we'll go check out the property when we have it in due diligence. But you're spot on. A lot of investors, at least before they meet our team and have conversations with me and others, tend to not value that real estate professional as much. And I would say you're missing out, not just on writing offers and contracts. Anybody can do that. But when you see that we've been through over 180 deals, probably way more than most of the investors that we're working with, and we've been able to negotiate crazy amount of credits, crazy amount of deals where there was one in particular, right, that I'll give you an example of, where we were trying to help a client buy their second short-term rental with us up in the mountains. And it's 2 A-frames that was sitting on 10 acres of land. Now, it was listed for 1.2 million. At that price, they didn't have the funds to come forward and do that, and they'd have to kind of finagle and pull from all different places, and they didn't want to do that. We were able to work out a deal where we were essentially going to get 200,000 in seller credits, right, to help them
Wow.
furnish the whole place, get it up and running, and only have to come with the down payment. And we're able to rework that because we think like an investor, and we've helped other investors
Right.
do this. Not to mention, when you look at having an investor-friendly realtor, at least when I had one, and then now that I've moved into the space, the value is in the list of vendors and the list of contacts. They can help you get to your goal. If you share the goal
Right.
that you're trying to reach with them and you check in with them constantly and they're checking in with you, my goodness, there's so much help that I had along the way to know if I need a roofer, if I need a plumber, I'm just going to get the exact person that she's already negotiated with, and they're going to help me. And we do the same for our client.
Exactly. I love that you brought up a lot of good points of what that relationship can offer to investors. So huge fan of that. Great point. And the other thing I loved from that story is how you did the experiment with the short-term rental house hack. That's something that I love to be like, hey, how can we just dip our toe in the water? How can we test this out and recognize that this isn't like before we sell our whole portfolio and pivot to a new strategy, let's just see if it's for us with a little taster. So I love how you did that. I'm curious what other wisdom you would have for people along those lines.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of trying the one that's going to require the least amount of capital for you to at least test this thing out. And so if somebody's willing to delay gratification and they want to get started in real estate, I'm always pushing people toward a house hack, right? Go ahead and play offense and defense, right? Go get a duplex, triplex, quadplex like I did, live in one unit, rent the others out, and have the tenants pay most of your living costs. Now you're winning on every front. You have to live somewhere, and now your living is subsidized, and you're seeing if you actually like this thing. If you don't, you move out in a year, you don't have to do it again. You have an investment property. If you do like it, maybe you find a passion and you grow from there. Whereas I have a lot of newer investors, they're like, hey, for my first property, I want to go do, a huge flip and a luxury flip. And yes, there's some people that are successful there, and we will help you if you're adamant, but we always pause for a second and say, hey, why do you want to do this for your first one? It's going to require X amount of money. Even though you're getting the hard money, they're still going to charge you points. You got to put down 20% if it's your first one. There's like a lot going on. And it's almost like riding a motorcycle without a helmet. Whereas doing a house hack where you're going to put down 5%, 3.5%, right? And it's really hard to mess that up. It's like riding a bicycle with the tricycle pieces that help you as a kid, right? And so it's a way to get started with a little bit less. And we always push people toward doing something like that for your first investment, as opposed to going all in and putting down 50% on a property.
Right. I love that. And I think that's something also when people work with an investor-friendly agent, you get that wisdom. And one thing I know that like when I had my team and I hear you already saying here that resonates is a good agent isn't just going to say, oh yeah, that sounds great, to the thing that's going to give them the biggest commission, right? Like if somebody's wanting to do that luxury, flip like you're talking about, that's going to give you the biggest commission. And, a good investor friendly agent is going to be like, hey, let's set you up for success, even if I'm going to make less on this first one, because my priority is you as the client, is the investor doing well. And I know that, hey, if you like the investing, I'm going to make a whole lot money more in the long run because you're going to keep doing it again and again.
Adrienne, what you just hit on is the key. And we share this with our clients. That is literally our model. It's not the first property, but we want to be there for you through the first 30 units that you build. The same way I did with the other agent that's now my partner in the self-storage. With her, over a 6 or 7 year period, I bought 30 units and I've now sold those 30 units. That's millions of dollars in revenue for her business that she doesn't have to keep like coming back to the well or paying somebody for, right? I was coming back because she was excellent. She's been awesome.
Right.
And she's been awesome as a partner. And so my goal is to develop the same thing here. And we've already had multiple clients that have come back for their second, third, fourth. Right now, under contract, I have a client that's buying his fourth short-term rental. He moved down from New York now. He lives in Metro of Atlanta, and he's doing this full-time now because they're killing it. I have another client that's buying their second property. They bought a fourplex maybe 2 months ago, and now they want to buy a short-term rental to save on taxes because we connect them to our investor-friendly CPA, and they're talking to them about, hey, you make a lot. Do you want to save on taxes? And when you look at my team of 10 agents, half of that team came from people that we helped as clients first, right, by the first, second, or maybe even third deal. And then they liked the process so much that they went and got licensed, joined the team to help others. And so we're thinking more long term. That's why we wanted to get into this niche of helping investors, because not many realtors can speak the way that you speak and I speak, right? We're actually investors that are trying to help people. Right. Most realtors are kind of out there just showing regular houses, which is fine. But we wanted to purposely target this niche because if we do this well, we're going to have repeat business for a long time.
I love that. Now, we're going to talk a lot about systems because I know on your investing and property management side, and then also with this real estate team, there's a lot of systems. So let's break down some of that for our listeners, both investors and agents, with some wisdom that they can walk away from. So the first shift I want to talk about, we see a lot in the investor space, is you were managing your own units, and now you are managing or co-hosting or helping other units in the short-term rental and mid-term rental space. So I'm sure there were some lessons learned, maybe some the hard way there. How did that shift and starting to manage your short-term rentals and mid-term rentals teach you about your own operation and help you maybe improve your systems?
Oh, man. So you're going to have to go through the fire, right? There's going to be like an in-between period where you can't necessarily pay people a whole lot, right, to join the team. But you've got to be able to push through, and you're going to be working an insane amount of hours during that time period to make it happen. But specifically talking about the short-term rentals, I started out just managing that one in the basement, the house hack, right? And then it was doing so well after 3 months, I bought a full-on house that was in the same neighborhood, and we made that a short-term rental. And then I was connecting with other investors in the city because I was newer here and started managing some of theirs. So very quickly, I went from just managing the one to like 4 or 5 by the end of that year. And then word of mouth started getting around and others started coming on board to try to help. And so initially it was just me. It was me and software. I use a software called Hospitable, which allows you to automate a lot of the guest messaging, which is amazing. And it also allows you to automate the cleaner messaging and give them a calendar so that they can see like, okay, this is when my next paint is. Because initially I was just trying to do this, myself through the app, and I missed 1 or 2 cleans that were like last minute ones. It's like, oh man, somebody extended or somebody is checking out early and we need to go get this place clean. And it was terrible. And so I'd recommend implementing software immediately, like Hospitable or others that are out there. And then there's that happy medium point where you start to get to the point where, and my wife will attest, I was still messaging guests at like 9 p.m., 10 p.m. It's like, me, when are you putting the phone down? Like, we got into this so you could have more free time. And so that's when I started looking around. And there was a couple of people that were raising their hand around and saying, hey, can you teach me this? Can you help with this? And so I brought two of those individuals on, and I could not pay them much, right? It really was selling them on the vision of what this was going to look like a couple years down the road. And so I was able to do a percentage split of the revenue we brought in from a property management company. And they were okay taking that and then working together to kind of handle the messaging, right? And so that was like the first couple hires that we made. Fast forward to today, we still have one of those two individuals with us. Now she's moved into an operation manager's role, making a whole lot more, which is awesome salary plus a couple bonuses. And now we have VAs, we've got AI, we've got, a bunch of different cleaning teams, and all of that has gotten a lot easier. But that messy middle is a time period where you're going to be working, 16, 17-hour days to try to make it happen, right? But once you get past that and push to that larger level, you'll now have enough income coming in to actually hire people to do all the work. So now I don't message at all. I don't do much. I just meet once a week with a team to make sure that we're on track and give guidance on certain things. And then I work with new owners to get them onboarded, and I go from there.
If you're a real estate entrepreneur trying to scale while doing everything yourself, there's a better way. The Time and Freedom Starter Pack gives you the exact first steps to reclaim hours each week with real support, including what to hand off, where to start, and simple tools you can put into place right away. Download it for free at adriennegreen.com/starter pack. Now let's get back to the episode. Perfect. I love that. So that leads perfectly into the next question, which I also love Hospitable. But let's talk about when you started to get those team members on for property management or for, your whatever comes to mind for this question. When did you start to identify processes that you could document and hand off? And how did you do that, right? How did you go? Because that's something a lot of listeners struggle with is they're like, I know how to do it all. It's all in my head. How do I hand that off to someone else? How did that work for you?
Man, so it took a lot of setting time aside to make it happen. But nowadays, it's more easy than ever. So I'll talk about how I did it, and I'll talk about how we do it today. So how I did it is I read a book called Traction, which I think, you've probably read, and a lot of people should read if you haven't as an entrepreneur. And one of the things they talk about is elevating and delegating, which is every single day you should, but every week at least, you should be thinking about, hey, what's taking up most of my time? That's a repetitive task that can be delegated to somebody else so that I can elevate to another level and bring more business in. And so I started just one at a time, taking, okay, this is something I do, like coordinating maintenance, right? When things come through, how can I shift that over to my guest experience, right? When it comes to even the messaging, always look at it in two ways. One, can I automate this? So in Hospitable, a question we get all the time is about parking and about Wi-Fi. So can we have an automated message go out for those two things? And can we tell people ahead of time? And then if they ask, have an automated message? Yes. Okay, let's do that. If it's something that's more obscure, what we did is we put together like a Google sheet. And anytime there was a weird question, I just had the team reach out to me. I give them a response, and then they added that to the Google sheet. Now there's AI within the Hospitable system, and you could just put it directly in there, give it the answer, and it'll start responding for you. And so what I'd say for people moving forward when it comes to putting together systems and things of that nature, utilize what we have. Like now, when it comes to putting together a system, I don't even write anything down. It used to be, okay, I need to go into a Word document or Excel sheet. I will record a voice note, talk through the whole system, copy that, paste it into Claude or OpenAI or whatever AI system that you're using, and ask it to create just an SOP that's very simple to follow. And that's what I'll put in. And now taking it a step further, you can also just put that into the Hospitable AI, and it will now understand and know the SOP and be able to respond for you and pull from that knowledge portal if a guest has a question on something like that. So it's gotten easier over time. I like that. I like using Loom, which you probably do too. Anytime it's something where it's like, okay, I need to show my team, whether it be real estate team or the short-term rental team, how to do something, I would do a Loom video, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, send it their way. And then we keep a repository of that in a Word document where it'll give you a description of what this is talking about. So if you ever need to find it, you can just search and click it.
I agree with you. I built my team before AI, and yes, we had to actually write SOPs. I made the video and like my VA had to type up the SOP, and now it's like you can get a pretty darn good one just by putting the transcript of a call into AI. So it's easier than ever. I love how you said that. And you also did make the point that it is going to take some of your time at first to get those things out of your head and to get them transferred. And people are reticent to acknowledge that like you almost have to slow down to speed up sometimes.
Yes, you are spot on. And the best thing I can tell you is use your calendar to control your day. And I literally, for that elevate and delegate, I still have it on my calendar. I set aside time every Monday and every Friday to just think through it. Okay, what is it that's taking up most of my time? Can I delegate this? And if I need to put a system in place, it's during that 1 hour time frame that I'm recording the Loom video. Or I'm putting together the SOP with AI now, and I'm making sure I'm checking it twice, checking it 3 times. Because once I get this off my plate, I don't have to do this again. I'm sure you do the same for things like this podcast, right? Like if you were the one that had to record the podcast, find the guest, and then do all the edits and all this stuff, which you probably did starting, in the beginning days, if you were still doing that, there's a lot less guests and a lot less content you could put out. And so over time, you start to realize, okay, I don't have to be the one doing all this. Even in the realtor business, right? I did the exact same thing. You can ask my wife. She can attest to this. There used to be times where I'd be working 16-hour days. Now I have a team and we built it in a way where it's almost like an apprenticeship model. And so I'm done work every single day by 5 p.m. The only time I work a little bit past that is if the due diligence is ending that night and I have to make sure we get something done. I don't even show most of the properties that we're doing. I have some of my more junior agents are out there showing while I work on the biggest priority piece, which is negotiating the deal, making sure the numbers work, making sure it's in the right area, and setting our clients up for success. And all that came from the elevate and delegate and really thinking through, hey, how can we move this off my plate to where now we can serve more? Because if it depended on me to go show, every single person, there's only so many hours in a day. But if I have a team that's showing all the people, I can now help 10, 20 people at one time, and it's just negotiating.
I love all that. It resonates. And so I would say for our investor listeners, like my opinion, you get better service when you work with a team than you do with a solo agent because of what Niyi is sharing here. Like if you're working with a solo agent, your ability to see that house, even if it's remote and you're just having the agent go take pictures for you or something, your ability to do that is limited by their hours in the day. But if you've got a team, they've got junior agents who are going to be a lot more available to see that house and to do that showing than if you're working with one agent by themselves. And another thing is that, you could speak to more if you'd like, me, is like you mentioned you guys do a lot of deals. Like I know my team was doing over 100 deals a year. And so it's like we saw everything. And so whatever came up, let's say a low appraisal, right? I knew a solo agent, an appraisal under the, purchase price, totally threw them for a loop. For us, it was no big deal because we dealt with it several times a year.
You're 100% spot on, and we lean on each other. And there's certain things that me as a team leader, I haven't done before that I'm leaning on my team. For example, one of my team members is a retired CPA. We helped her buy 2 properties, one short-term rental, one personal property before she moved down here from Boston. And then she got her license and joined the team. She moved into a 55 plus community, right? And I've been over there to hang out and it's kind of cool, but it's a whole different process when you're buying one of those houses. Fast forward, we had a client 2 years ago that was looking to buy in a 55 plus community. And I was able to lean on her for all of her knowledge to help this client. And she and I just partnered. And she's like, yeah, this is how it goes. The contract looks completely different. Okay, we're going to do it. Like it was completely different from a normal process, right? But because we have that team, we can lean on each other as opposed to try to figure it out by yourself when you have that client's trust.
That's a really good point. Now, let's say that maybe there's a lesson you learned the hard way. Is there a task that you held on to too long before finally delegating? And what pushed you to finally let it go?
Man, so one was invoicing. So that's one thing that I was a little bit touchy on, right? For my short-term rental owners, it was like, okay, I need to make sure I see each of these to make sure there's not a discrepancy or things of that nature on there. And so that invoicing, when you go from, 4 units to now we manage over 25, that can take up many hours in your day alone. And you got all these receipts and things coming in and you're checking everything. And that was one of the ones that I was last to let go. And when I did, and I finally trained somebody on it, my goodness, the time that it opened up and the mental freedom, I didn't realize, but it was almost making me not want to take on more short-term rental clients that people would raise their hand and say, hey, you open to, and I'm like, like trying to make up some excuse. Well, hey, maybe you should manage it yourself as opposed to jumping at it and saying, yes, let's do this. And that was one of
Hmm.
the things that was keeping me back, right? Was, hey, I know this is going to be another headache of sending all these invoices, but now that I've moved it off, oh my goodness, it's been incredible. Another piece was I think I held on to doing the transaction coordination for way too long, right? I did it for the first 2 years in real estate before moving to a transaction coordinator. And that would take up about 4 hours per deal to put all the documents in and then send all these agreements out and make sure everything's getting signed. And that was a mental weight as well. And at that point, I could probably only work with 3, 4 clients at a time because I got to make sure all the dates are up and I'm reminding people, okay, we got this date coming up, this date. I didn't want to miss anything. But now adding that transaction coordinator into the team has been a game changer. Now I don't have to think about any of that. They're the ones sending all those messages. They put the dates right in our follow-up box so we can see it at any time. And it just makes it so much easier.
Yeah, I agree. Everything you're saying, I think, is so wise. And a lot of people hold on to like finance and accounting stuff a lot. People don't want to let that go. The truth is that is something that other people can usually do pretty well. And you can often give them that power and they can't actually move money. They're just doing the paperwork associated with it. It doesn't give them access to move money out of your bank or anything.
100%. 100%. And there's so many controls now that you can put because we use like QuickBooks for that. And even like, so we pay our cleaners on the first and the 15th, right? And I used to be the one to look at all the notes and say, okay, this is how much, and then send the payment. And I just thought on one of those elevate and delegate days that this is taking a lot of time. How can I just cut that whole time? And so now I have my executive assistant. She puts all that together because she can see everything, all the cleanings, all that stuff. She puts it all together. She sends an email to the cleaner with me CC to say, hey, this is the amount we're sending. Does this look right to you? They tell her any discrepancies. And then boom, now I know the exact amount to where it only takes me 5 minutes to send payments to everybody on a Friday, which is amazing.
Love that. Now, the last thing I want us to discuss is how you operate across multiple different states with your real estate team, Georgia, Florida, and Texas. And both for investors and for agents, they often feel that, they've got to be able to touch the real estate, right? People have a lot of challenges with doing anything long distance. So I'd love for you to kind of share some wisdom on how you manage a business kind of long distance there,
I think this comes back to a little bit of my past, right? So I was in medical device sales for 7 years. And during that time period, I got promoted 4 times. So the first promotion moved me from Philly to Chicago. Then I moved to Louisville, Kentucky, which is why I started investing there. Then I moved to Boston. And then the last promotion moved me to Atlanta, right? And so in that whole time period, I could have made the excuse of, hey, I'm going to pause on investing because I can't do it in my backyard in Boston. It's too expensive or things of that nature. But I just kept investing, right? And when I was in Boston for 3.5 years, I was able to build that portfolio from the 3 units that I started out with to 30 through long distance investing. And that got me comfortable with, hey, I don't actually have to be boots in the ground to see every single one of these properties. I just need to know that the numbers work, know that there's checks and balances to where I can send in an inspector to check out everything. And they're going to give me a much more detailed report than I'd be able to see anyway. And that I can use that to negotiate. And so when it comes to the real estate business, it's very similar, especially in this niche. If we're in a niche of more resale where it's like, hey, somebody's going to go and this is going to be their forever family home where they need to go like, hey, do I like the colors and the wall and things of that nature? It'd be a little bit different where you have to go see every single one of these before you get it under contract. But we're in the investment niche. And so what we focus on is making sure we're really good at running the numbers, making sure we have a good idea of different neighborhoods and things of that nature, or have a specialist that's in that state that knows about the different neighborhoods and things of that nature that we're looking for. And then once we find the deal, we put it under contract with enough days of due diligence that we can get out and see it once it's under contract and make sure everything checks out. So that's kind of how we work it. And it's been a joy. Like the first expansion wasn't, me saying, hey, we're going to go take over the world. The first expansion happened because we had 10 agents or 11 agents in Georgia. And one of them was moving back to Florida because their husband was going to pursue a PhD, right? Which is kind of cool. I was like, okay, so you're moving back to Florida. Are you still trying to practice real estate? She said yes. And then some of the clients that we helped in Georgia, once we mentioned that we're now in Florida, reached out and said, hey, we actually wanted to buy, a vacation home in Florida. And so we helped them, helped some others, and we just kept growing from there. And then Texas was an agent that reached out specifically to join our team and expand us out there. So
I love
Yeah,
it.
now we're in Georgia, Florida, and Texas. It's been amazing so far.
That is awesome. I love it. And I can just hear throughout all your different experiences that you're sharing, I see a few themes of like team, right? Leveraging other people, their skills, their wisdom, their experience, and not having fear, right? Coming back to the numbers and not being afraid just because something is different or you haven't done it before or it's not how other people do it.
That's the key. I think now more than ever, with the technology that we have, especially even being able to do like a video walkthrough, being able to research even more detail than we ever could with some of these AI tools, I think there's less excuses for investing far away or taking on something new. Like you've got more tools than anybody before us that built these amazing companies and amazing businesses.
Very good point. All right. So, Niyi, thank you so much for everything you've shared. If somebody would like to reach out for you because they're looking to buy an investment property in these areas or they're looking for somebody to help manage theirs, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Sure. Yeah, you can check us out at ekabohome.com, which is EKABO home.com. It's the same name on Instagram. You can Google me. We'd be happy to help you.
Love that. And guys, of course, if you're driving or anything, it's all in the show notes or the caption below. Thank you so much. And for our listeners, thanks for joining us on another episode. Catch us again next week with another amazing guest.